This video is brought to you by Stitcher. What is Stitcher? Well, it's a free podcast app that's available for both iOS and Android. Now, Stitcher has been around for a while, you might have heard of it, but it's recently been rebuilt, making it quicker, very snappy, and easier to listen to the podcast that you love, and also discover new ones. Plus, there's lots of extra features, like you can choose how fast you want to listen or how slow you want to listen to a podcast. It's not just 1.5 or 2 times, but you can really get granular with how fast you want to go. Plus, you can choose download preferences for each of these shows that you're into. And of course, you'll be able to find all of the shows that you love. It's just a better way to listen to podcasts. I'm now using it, and I'd recommend that if you love podcasts, and well, who doesn't, you give it a shot as well. Download the app for free today. There is a link below. Back in the halcyon days of 1995, Pepsi launched their aptly titled Drink Pepsi, Get Stuff campaign that allowed customers to earn points on every Pepsi product they bought and then exchange them for things like Pepsi-branded t-shirts and hats. The promotion was a roaring success and resulted in nothing of note happening whatsoever. Unless, of course, you count the guy who sued them because they refused to exchange 7 million Pepsi points for a Harrier jet. The man in question was John Leonard, and in the later months of 1995, he turned on his TV and saw an ad announcing the Pepsi Stuff promotion. For those who aren't interested in watching the advertisement, it essentially shows a teen on his way to school highlighting items one can buy with Pepsi points, such as a Pepsi t-shirt for 75 points, a leather jacket for 1,450 points, etc. The book, The Law of Marketing by Linda J. Oswald, describes what happened next in exquisite detail. The scene then shifts to 3 young boys sitting in front of a high school building. The boy in the middle is intent on his Pepsi Stuff catalog, while the boys on either side are each drinking Pepsi. The 3 boys gaze in awe at an object rushing overhead as the military march builds to a crescendo. The Harrier jet is not yet visible, but the observer senses the presence of a mighty plane as the extreme winds generated by its flight create a paper maelstrom in a classroom devoted to an otherwise dull physics lesson. Finally, the Harrier jet swings into view and lands by the side of the school building next to a bicycle rack. Several students run for cover, and the velocity of the wind strips one hapless faculty member down to his underwear. While the faculty member is being deprived of his dignity, the voiceover announces, "Now the more Pepsi you drink, the more great stuff you're gonna get." The following words then appear: Harrier fighter, 7 million Pepsi points. Upon seeing the commercial, Leonard, a 21-year-old business student, did a little research and came to the startling conclusion the Pepsi Harrier giveaway was actually an amazing deal at only 7 million points. You see, in 1995, the value of a single Harrier jet was about $33 million, give or take a few million, depending on whose estimates you want to use. This meant that even if every 2-liter bottle of Pepsi only awarded a single point, in reality many bottles and cans offered more depending on where they were purchased, the Harrier would still only cost about $7 million in real money. To confirm there were no loopholes here, Leonard got his hands on a Pepsi Stuff price catalog. While no Harrier jet was listed there, he did notice it stated in the small print that if a person already had 15 Pepsi points, they could purchase an unlimited number of additional points towards any item they wanted for 10 cents apiece. This meant Leonard could effectively purchase the Harrier for a mere $700,000 and wouldn't need to pre-purchase millions of dollars of Pepsi products to do it, making the whole business venture significantly less risky from a financial standpoint. And so it was on March the 27th of the following year, Leonard sent 15 Pepsi points, an order form with the words "1 Harrier jet" written in the item description, and a check for $708.50. $699,998.50 for the remaining 6,999,985 points, and $10 for shipping and handling to the required address, and waited. Pepsi, upon receiving the order, sent the check back with a letter explaining that the Harrier jet was not part of the offer, nor was it included in the prize catalog, and that its inclusion in the advertisement was merely intended as a fanciful addition to make the ad more entertaining. The letter also included a bunch of coupons to apologize for any misunderstanding or confusion. Of course, Leonard was dead serious in the previous year, having managed to convince 5 unnamed investors to back his little venture. When later asked by the news about why he was so intent on getting a Harrier jet, Leonard explains that as a member of the so-called Pepsi generation the company was advertising to, the notion of owning a Harrier jet appealed to him enormously. Of course, with investors involved, it's far more likely the group was simply looking for a large out-of-court settlement. Whatever the case, when Leonard received the response from Pepsi, his lawyer responded in turn on May 14th, 1996, "Your letter of May 7th, 1996 is totally unacceptable. We have reviewed the videotape of the Pepsi Stuff commercial, and it clearly offers the new Harrier jet for 7 million Pepsi points. Our client followed your rules explicitly. This is a formal demand that you honor your commitment and make immediate arrangements to transfer the new Harrier jet to our client. If we do not receive transfer instructions within 10 business days of the date of this letter, you will leave us no choice but to file an appropriate action against Pepsi." Oddly, rather than reply themselves this time, Pepsi forwarded the letter to the ad company responsible for the commercial, who replied to Leonard stating that the offer was clearly a joke, adding that they found it hard to believe anyone had actually taken it seriously. However, perhaps at least being a little nervous over the issue in order to avoid copycat lawsuits, Pepsi promptly changed the price of the jet in the ad from 7 million Pepsi points to 700 million Pepsi points. But they still had to deal with Leonard, who sued Pepsi for fraud, breach of contract, and deceptive advertising. The case limped through the courts for 3 years. While the court of public opinion was strongly on the side of Leonard and his investors, after all, the commercial clearly stated that if you acquired 7 million Pepsi points, you could exchange them for a Harrier jet, the court that actually had power to issue a ruling was not. The issue was finally settled in 1999, with the judge concluding that no objective person could reasonably have concluded that the commercial actually offered consumers a Harrier jet. It is notable that Leonard's legal team attempted to argue that no judge could accurately determine whether the target audience of the commercial, the Pepsi generation, would or would not conclude that the commercial was really offering a jet, specifically noting a federal judge is incapable of deciding on the matter and that instead the decision had to be made by a jury consisting of members of the Pepsi generation to whom the advertisement would allegedly constitute an offer. In any event, in regards to the accusation of fraud, this too was thrown out, as commercials aren't considered legally binding offers under the Restatement Second of Contracts Treatise, which notes, "Advertisements of goods by display, sign, handbill, newspaper, radio, or television are not ordinarily intended or understood as offers to sell. The same is true of catalogs, price lists, and circulars, even though the terms of suggested bargains may be stated in some detail. It is, of course, possible to make an offer by an advertisement directed to the general public, but there must ordinarily be some language of commitment or some invitation to take action without further communication." Finally, the courts ruled that not giving Leonard the Harrier wasn't in breach of contract, as no written agreement between the two parties involving the giving or receiving of a jet had been drafted or signed. As Arthur Linton Corbin noted in Corbin on Contracts, there would be no enforceable contract until the defendant, PepsiCo, accepted the order form and cashed the check. As Pepsi did neither, there was no breach of contract. This all leaves one wondering, had the court ruled otherwise, would Pepsi have been able to give Leonard the jet? The answer, according to Pentagon spokesman Ken Bacon, was decidedly no. In response to Bacon's assertions, Leonard stated that he would take a Harrier jet in a form that eliminated its potential for military use. The US military has, in the past for instance, sold tanks to civilians after their weaponry was removed. In response to that, Bacon claimed that doing the same to a jet would strip it of its ability to fly, rendering it useless. That's not to mention that a Harrier jet uses a massive amount of fuel per minute of flight, varying depending on what you're doing at the time, and requires millions of dollars of maintenance over the course of its lifetime, both of which make it prohibitively expensive for any but the richest of civilians to operate. But of course, it is likely that Leonard and his investors were never actually interested in the jet, just the potential payout if the court ruled in their favor. Leonard attempted to appeal the court's decision in 2000, with the ruling ultimately upheld. And now for a bonus fact. This wasn't the only Pepsi promo snafu of the 1990s. You see, at one point, they also accidentally promised about 800,000 people $40,000 each. So, well, what's the story on this one? The origins of this particular corporate horror story can be traced back to the early 1990s, when PepsiCo was struggling to gain a foothold in the Philippines. Noted as being the 12th biggest market for soft drink consumption at the time, Coca-Cola controlled about 75% of that market, while Pepsi only had 17%. In an effort to push Coke from the throne, Pepsi enlisted the help of the Mexican marketing firm DG Consultores. Together, they workshopped what would eventually become known as the Number Fever campaign. Mechanically, the promotion was similar to other giveaways the soda giant had taken part in, revolving around the collection of bottle caps for various Pepsi products, including Pepsi itself, Mountain Dew, and 7-Up. On these caps was printed a seemingly random 3-digit number. Each day, Pepsi would announce one of these numbers on Filipino television, and a prize ranging from 100 pesos, about $4 then or $7 today, to 1 million pesos, about $40,000 then or $71,000 today, would be awarded to holders of the numbers. To ensure that they didn't hand out too many prizes, an algorithm was used to ensure only a specific amount of winning bottle caps were printed. This algorithm was tweaked such that the entire spend for the prizes on the campaign would not exceed around $2 million. To add an air of pomp and circumstance to the whole ordeal, the winning numbers were stored in a fancy bank vault and delivered to a designated TV studio, specifically Channel 2 News in Manila, each day, though as the promotion grew, other stations picked it up as well. Officially launched in the opening months of 1992, the promotion was a hit and saw sales of Pepsi products spike by 40% in the region almost overnight. In terms of raw market share, at its peak, the additional sales helped Pepsi capture a further 9% of the Filipino soda market. In the end, an estimated 31 million Filipinos bought a promotional Pepsi product during the time that the promotion ran, a number for the curious that amounted to roughly half of the country's population at the time. Speaking of grand prize winners, to ensure that they had complete control over how many people won it, Pepsi handed down a list of forbidden numbers to DG Consultores, who were handling the distribution side of the promotion, which were reserved exclusively for the grand prize that bottlers absolutely would not print on the inside of the caps. Initially, the campaign ran without a hitch, and by May of that year, there had been 17 grand prize winners, while thousands more had won similar prizes. This all changed, though, when, on May the 25th, Channel 2 announced that the final grand prize would be awarded to anyone holding a bottle cap with the number 349 printed on it, a number that was on the list of forbidden numbers to be picked as a winner, importantly because it was printed on about 800,000 bottle caps. Who exactly screwed up here isn't really known, though presumably internally someone missed out on the Employee of the Month award on this one. But whatever the case, as you can imagine, people holding bottle caps with the number 349 on them were very keen to claim their rather large prize, with tens of thousands of people turning up to Pepsi plants across the country demanding their money. All in all, some 486,170 of the 800,000 bottle caps printed ended up being found, meaning Pepsi owed just shy of $20 billion. And just for the curious, as we ourselves were wondering how that number compared just for fun, the entire gross domestic product of the Philippines that year was about $52 billion. Unwilling to pay out the billions of dollars it would cost to honor each winning bottle cap, Pepsi instructed officials at the locations to simply turn people away and claim that the number 349 had been announced in error. Naturally, when it was announced that no prizes would be awarded for this number, this caused mass outrage and riots to break out at Pepsi locations across the Philippines. To appease the masses, Pepsi announced that they would offer anyone holding a 349 bottle cap 500 pesos, about $18 at the time or $32 today, as a gesture of goodwill. How they settled on this number isn't clear, but it is noteworthy that this did tack on an additional spend of nearly $9 million for Pepsi and closer to $17 million if all 800,000 or so caps were found. For some reason, people who'd initially been expecting a literal million peso payday didn't respond well to this offer, and thousands of them filed suit against the company. One woman, Paciencia Salem, even vowed that when she died, to quote her, "My ghost will come to fight Pepsi." It's also noteworthy that her husband died of a heart attack during a Pepsi boycott march shortly before she said this in an interview. On that note, many chose to take out their frustrations on the company more directly, storming Pepsi offices and bottling plants, the latter of which were forced to employ armed guards and put up barbed wire fences to keep out angry customers. Naturally, Pepsi wasted no time removing non-essential employees from the country until things calmed down. Violence against tangible representations of the company followed, with Pepsi delivery trucks being particularly an easy target for the collective wrath of the Filipino people, with a few dozen of them being destroyed. Tragically, one truck was even attacked by a man with a grenade, which ended up bouncing off its target and killing a schoolteacher and 2 children, while severely wounding 6 more people. Rather than blame the man who threw the grenade, many in the masses blamed Pepsi for causing the fiasco in the first place. Calls for a boycott followed, and sales of Pepsi products nosedived across the country as the sustained negative coverage of their brands and the violence the promotion had caused dominated Filipino airwaves. However, once again proving that no matter how big of a screw-up you make, when it comes to soft drinks particularly, it doesn't matter. Pepsi weathered the controversy completely and sales recovered to their former levels once the mobs disbanded and the news moved on to other stories. And from the legal side of things, Pepsi got off mostly scot-free here as well. While they did have to fight thousands of lawsuits over the issue up until 2006. That year, a Philippine Supreme Court ruling definitively cleared them, and they didn't end up having to pay anything to any of those who brought suit against the company. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.